The plasma bolt screamed past Marcus Kane's helmet, close enough to fog his visor with ionized vapor. He dove behind a crystalline outcrop as 3 more shots shattered the rock face above him. "Kane, fall back!" Lieutenant Greg Hammond's voice crackled through the comm. "We're outnumbered 10-1. Marcus didn't answer. His eyes locked on the alien structure 200 meters ahead, where the rest of his squad was pinned down by Vakreen heavy fire. They had 12 minutes before the orbital bombardment turned this entire valley into molten glass. He sprinted. The Vakreen were 8 feet tall, armored in biometallic plating that shrugged off standard pulse rounds. Marcus had watched 3 good soldiers die in the last hour learning that lesson. But their arrogance made them predictable. They expected humans to retreat, to calculate, to fear. Marcus Kane had stopped calculating 5 years ago when the Vakreen glassed Earth's colony on Proxima 7. 60,000 dead, his sister among them. He slid beneath a hovering Vakreen war platform, mag-locked a breaching charge to its underside, and kept running. The explosion lifted 2 warriors off their feet. Marcus put rounds through their exposed neck joints before they hit the ground. "You insane bastard," Hammond breathed over the comm. But Marcus heard the hope creeping into his voice. Then she appeared. The alien girl stepped from behind the structure's entrance, and every Vakreen weapon suddenly turned away from Marcus's squad. Toward her. She was Vakreen, but different. Smaller, maybe 6 feet tall, with bioluminescent patterns flowing across her silver skin like living poetry. Her eyes, triple irised and burning violet, found Marcus across the chaos. "Human soldier," her voice came through his comm in perfect English, musical and urgent. "I am Lyria Telvar. I have information that will end this war, but they will kill me before I can deliver it." A Vakreen commander roared something in their clicking language. Lyria's hand moved to a device at her belt. "The Vakreen High Command has chosen me to bond with their war prince," she continued, her words coming faster as enemy forces closed in around her. "It is the highest honor in our society. But I refuse. I choose you, human. I choose your people." Marcus's tactical brain screamed that this was a trap. Every instinct from 2 decades of combat told him to leave her and extract his team. But her eyes held something he recognized. Defiance. The same fire that kept him fighting when logic said to surrender. "Hammond, get the squad to the extraction point," Marcus said, his legs already moving toward Lyria. "Kane, don't—" Marcus killed the comm and ran straight into the teeth of the Vakreen formation, toward the alien girl who had just declared war on her own species. For him. Marcus's boots hammered against crystalline ground as pulse fire carved the air around him. Lyria raised her hand, and a translucent energy barrier erupted from the device on her belt, deflecting 3 shots that would have taken his head off. "Stay behind me!" she shouted. He reached her position and immediately grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a collapsed section of the structure. "If you've got intel that ends wars, we need to move now." A Vakreen warrior, larger than the others and decorated with ceremonial scars, landed between them and their escape route. His armor was deep crimson, marking him as elite guard. He spoke in the Vakreen language, his tone dripping with contempt. Lyria responded in kind, her voice sharp as broken glass. What did he say? Marcus fired twice at the warrior's joints, but the shots ricocheted off personal shielding. "He said I dishonor my bloodline by fleeing to primitive animals," Lyria translated. "I told him humanity has more honor in one soldier than the entire Vakreen armada." The warrior's shield flared brighter. He drew a blade that hummed with molecular disruption technology, capable of cutting through starship hull plating. Marcus had fought Vakreen blade masters before. He'd seen them dissect power armor like surgeons. This close, with that weapon, he had maybe 3 seconds before he became a tactical statistic. Lyria stepped in front of him. "Krovar, I am Telvar Cast," she said in English, for Marcus's benefit. "You cannot strike me without High Command authorization. That is law?" Krovar's massive head tilted. He spoke again, and this time Marcus caught the edge of cruel amusement in his clicking syllables. "He says the War Prince has already declared me traitor," Lyria whispered. "The law no longer protects me." The blade came down. Marcus shoved Lyria aside and raised his rifle to block. The molecular edge sheared through the weapon like it was paper, but the impact bought him a half-second. He rolled, came up with his sidearm, and put 4 rounds into Crowbar's face. The shield absorbed 3. The 4th punched through and took the warrior's left eye. Crowbar roared and backhanded Marcus 15 feet through the air. He hit the ground hard enough to crack his helmet's faceplate. Blood filled his mouth. Through blurred vision, he saw Lyria moving, her hands dancing across her belt device. The air around her began to shimmer with energy buildup. "Lyria, don't!" Marcus coughed. "You'll kill yourself." "Better than what they will do to both of us," she said, and there was a terrible finality in her voice. The device on her belt was Vakreen technology he'd only seen in intelligence briefings, a personal fusion destabilizer. Suicide weapons carried by high-ranking officials to prevent capture. The blast radius would vaporize everything within 50 meters. Crowbar recognized it, too. He stopped advancing, his remaining eye widening. Marcus forced himself to his feet despite ribs that screamed protest. His mind raced through options, tactics, angles. There had to be a play here. There was always a play. Then Hammond's voice crackled through the broken comm. "Kane, if you can hear this, we've got friendly air support inbound 30 seconds. Marcus looked at Lyria, at the determination burning in her violet eyes, at the device glowing brighter in her hand. She was ready to die. Not from fear, but to ensure the information she carried didn't fall back into Vakreen hands. He understood that kind of commitment. He'd felt it himself, standing over the ashes of Proxima 7. "You said you choose humanity," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the pain. "Then trust us to fight for you." "What?" He pulled a smoke canister from his belt and threw it between them and Crowbar. White, hot magnesium smoke erupted, blinding Vakreen sensors. "Run!" Marcus grabbed Lyria's hand, pulling her away from the destabilizer's arming sequence. She hesitated for only a heartbeat before her fingers flew across the device, shutting it down. Then they were running together through the smoke as Crowbar's enraged roar echoed behind them. Above, Marcus heard the sweetest sound in the galaxy, the screaming engines of human strike fighters dropping from orbit, their weapons already hot. "This way!" Lyria pulled him left, somehow navigating through terrain she shouldn't know. "There's a cavern system. The bombardment won't reach us there." They dove into a narrow crevasse just as the first fighter made its strafing run. Plasma cannons lit up the valley, and Crowbar's roar turned into a scream. In the darkness of the cave, pressed against cold stone, Marcus finally asked the question burning in his mind. "Why me? Why humanity? You could have any life you wanted with your own people." Lyria's bioluminescent patterns provided the only light, pulsing in rhythm with her breathing. "Because," she said, "I have watched your species for 3 years. I have studied your wars, your losses, your refusal to surrender even when logic demands it. The Vakreen call you primitive, but you fight with something we lost 1,000 generations ago. What's that?" "Hope," she whispered. "You fight because you believe tomorrow can be better. We fight only because we have always fought." Outside, the orbital bombardment began. The cave shook, but held. Marcus looked at the alien girl who had thrown away everything for a chance at something different, something better. "All right," he said. "Let's make sure that hope wasn't misplaced. What's this intel that ends wars?" Lyria's expression turned grim. "The Vakreen are dying. Our species is sterile. We have perhaps 2 generations left before extinction. That is why we expand, why we conquer. We search for genetic compatibility, for any species that might save us." Marcus's blood ran cold. "And humans?" "Are compatible," Lyria finished. "The High Command knows. That is why they truly fight you so viciously. They fear you not because you might defeat us, but because you might replace us. And the War Prince wants me because I am one of the last fertile females of the Telvar bloodline." She met his eyes in the pulsing light. "If humanity learns this truth, you gain leverage to negotiate real peace. But if the Vakreen silence me first, the war continues until one of our species is extinct." The cave stopped shaking. Outside, the bombardment had ended. Marcus activated his comm. "Shri-chu-ya. Hammond, we're alive, and we're bringing home the key to ending this whole damn war." The extraction dropship's engines roared as it descended into the smoking crater that used to be a Vacreen firebase. Marcus kept Lyria close, his sidearm tracking movement in the haze while Hammond's squad formed a defensive perimeter. "Move! Move!" Lieutenant Greg Hammond waved them toward the open bay doors. "We've got Vacreen reinforcements 3 minutes out." Marcus and Lyria sprinted across scorched ground. The moment they hit the deck plating, the dropship's pilot punched the throttle. They rocketed skyward, pulling G-forces that pressed Marcus into the bulkhead. "Get us a secure channel to Fleet Command," Marcus ordered Hammond. "Priority Alpha." Hammond's expression darkened. "Kane, we're just a grunt squad. You don't have clearance for—" "The war ends today if they listen," Marcus cut him off. "Make it happen." Something in his tone made Hammond move. While the lieutenant worked the comms, Marcus turned to Lyria. She sat against the opposite bulkhead, her bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically. "You're injured," Marcus said. "Krovar's strike damaged my biological systems," she admitted, her voice strained. "Vacreen physiology is resilient, but not invincible. I will survive long enough to deliver my testimony." The way she said it, like she was measuring her life in hours rather than years, made Marcus's jaw tighten. Specialist Adrian Cole, the squad's medic, approached cautiously. "Sir, I don't know Vacreen biology, but—" "Let him examine you," Marcus told Lyria. "We didn't break you out just to watch you die on this bucket." Lyria hesitated, then nodded. Cole began running diagnostic scans while the rest of the squad pretended not to stare at the first living Vacreen any of them had seen up close without trying to kill it. "Command's on the line," Hammond said, handing Marcus a headset. "And they are not happy." Marcus keyed the mic. "This is Sergeant Marcus Kane, 3rd Recon Division. I have priority intelligence regarding Vacreen strategic objectives and a high-value defector requesting asylum." Static, then a woman's voice, cold and precise. "This is Admiral Victoria Cross, 5th Fleet. Sergeant, you just violated 6 protocols extracting from a hot zone with an unauthorized passenger. This better be worth a court-martial." "The Vacreen are going extinct," Marcus said bluntly. "They're searching for genetic compatibility to save their species. Humanity is compatible, that's why they're really fighting us." Silence stretched for 5 heartbeats. "Say again, Sergeant?" Marcus nodded to Lyria, who moved closer despite Cole's protests. "I am Lyria Telvar, genetic specialist of the Vacreen Research Cast," she said clearly. "Everything Sergeant Kane states is verified truth. I possess complete genetic surveys, high command strategic documents, and projected extinction timelines. The Vacreen leadership has concealed our species' infertility crisis for 70 years while searching for compatible biology across 200 star systems. Humanity is the first viable match we have discovered." Another pause. Marcus could almost hear the Admiral's mind racing through implications. "Why defect? Why tell us this?" "Because High Command intends to exterminate humanity once they have extracted sufficient genetic material," Lyria said, her patterns pulsing angry red. "They view you as resources, not beings. I was raised to believe in honor and the value of consciousness regardless of origin. When I discovered their plans, I could not remain complicit." "She's telling the truth," Marcus added. "The War Prince wants her for breeding purposes." "She refused and chose asylum with us instead." "The War Prince," Admiral Cross repeated slowly. "Kelvar Zonthar? The Vacreen Supreme Commander's heir?" "Yes," Lyria confirmed. "He has declared me traitor and will pursue with extreme prejudice. Every Vacreen asset will be mobilized to recapture or eliminate me." The comm crackled. "Sergeant Kane, what's your current position?" Hammond answered. "En route to Forward Base Titan, ETA 16 minutes. Negative. Divert immediately to coordinates I'm transmitting now. We're bringing you to the flagship. If what you're saying is accurate, this goes straight to the top of the command chain." The dropship banked hard as new coordinates fed into the navigation system. Through the viewport, Marcus saw the massive silhouette of a Marathon-class dreadnought hanging in orbit, bristling with enough firepower to level a continent. "Sergeant," the Admiral continued, "until we verify this information, you and your squad are now attached to Intelligence Division. No one discusses this. No one even acknowledges it happened. Clear? Crystal, ma'am. And, Sergeant, if she's playing you, if this is some elaborate Vacrine infiltration scheme, I will personally space you and your entire squad. Are we clear on that as well? Marcus looked at Lyria, at the defiance still burning in her violet eyes despite her injuries, at the way she'd been willing to vaporize herself rather than return to her people. She's legitimate, Admiral. I stake my life on it. You just did. Cross out. The comm went dead. The squad sat in tense silence as the dropship accelerated toward the dreadnought. Cole finished his scans and pulled Marcus aside. Sir, her internal systems are shutting down. Whatever Krovar did, it's cascading. She's got maybe 8 hours without medical intervention. Can we help her? Not with field equipment. She needs a full medical facility with xenobiology specialists. Cole's expression was grim. If the Admiral decides to interrogate her for days before providing treatment, Marcus didn't finish the thought. He moved back to Lyria and crouched beside her. How bad is it? Truth. She managed a weak smile. I have experienced worse pain, but your medic is correct. Without proper treatment, my biological functions will fail. Then we get you treatment the second we dock. They may choose to let me die after extracting my information, Lyria said softly. Intelligence agencies operate on pragmatism, not compassion. A dead Vacrine defector cannot be recaptured. Marcus felt anger flare in his chest. Marcus felt anger flare. You chose humanity. That means we don't abandon you to die. I don't care what intelligence protocol says. Hammond overheard and moved closer. Kane, if Cross wants her interrogated before treatment, we can't exactly countermand an admiral. Watch me, Marcus said flatly. The dreadnought's hangar bay loomed ahead, vast and bright with docking lights. The dropship settled onto the deck with a metallic clang. Before the engines even spooled down, a security team in full combat gear surrounded them, weapons ready. A man in Intelligence Division uniform stepped forward, his face unreadable. Sergeant Kane, Vacrine defector Lyria Telvar, you will accompany me immediately for debriefing. She needs medical attention first, Marcus said, not moving. Debriefing comes first, medical afterward. Those are Admiral Cross's orders. Marcus stepped between the officer and Lyria. Then the Admiral's orders are going to have to wait. This woman just gave up everything to help us. We're not letting her die while some suit decides if she's useful enough to keep alive. Every weapon in the hangar trained on Marcus. Hammond stepped beside him. Then Cole. Then the rest of the squad, one by one, until all 7 of them stood between Lyria and Intelligence Division. The officer's expression never changed. You're making a serious mistake, Sergeant. I've made worse, Marcus said. And I'm still here. The standoff lasted exactly 12 seconds before Admiral Victoria Cross's voice boomed through the hangar speakers. Stand down, all personnel. Sergeant Kane and his squad will escort the defector to Medical Bay 3. Dr. Elaine Foster is already prepped for xenobiology emergency treatment. The intelligence officer's jaw clenched, but he stepped aside. His team lowered their weapons with visible reluctance. Marcus didn't waste time questioning the reprieve. He helped Lyria to her feet, and the squad moved in formation toward the medical section, weapons still ready despite being aboard a friendly vessel. Why did she back down? Hammond muttered. She didn't, Marcus replied. She's calculating. Lyria dies, we lose the intel. She's buying time. They reached Medical Bay 3 to find a woman in her 50s already barking orders at her staff. Dr. Foster had steel gray hair pulled back tight and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd performed surgery during ship-to-ship combat. Get her on the table. I need full bioscans running now. Foster's eyes widened slightly when she saw Lyria, but her hands stayed steady. First live Vacrine I've ever treated. Try not to die on me and make me look bad. Lyria managed a weak laugh as medical staff helped her onto the examination platform. I will attempt to cooperate, Doctor. Foster's team moved with practiced efficiency, sensors mapping Lyria's biology in real time. The doctor studied the readouts with intense focus, occasionally muttering to herself. Fascinating. The damage is extensive, but localized to her third and fourth organ clusters. Humans don't have analogous systems, but functionally they appear to regulate cellular regeneration and toxin filtration. Foster looked up. She's essentially in cascade organ failure. Another 3 hours and it would have been irreversible. Can you fix it? Marcus asked. I can stabilize her. Full repair will take days of treatment, but she'll live. Foster's expression hardened. Assuming people let me do my job without interference. As if summoned by those words, the medical bay doors hissed open. Admiral Cross strode in, flanked by 2 Marine guards and the intelligence officer from the hangar. Cross was tall, her uniform immaculate despite the late hour, her dark eyes missing nothing. She studied Lyria on the medical table, then Marcus, then the squad still maintaining defensive positions. Sergeant Kane, she said, her voice carrying absolute authority. That was quite the show of loyalty in my hangar bay, mutinous technically, but I respect the commitment. Permission to speak freely, ma'am? Granted. She risked everything to bring us information that could save millions of human lives. If we treat her like disposable intelligence instead of an ally, we're no better than the Vacrine High Command she escaped from. Cross's expression didn't change. Noted. Dr. Foster, what's her condition? Stable. Once I complete the current treatment phase, she'll be conscious and lucid within the hour. Good, because we have a problem. Cross activated a holographic display. It showed deep space, multiple Vacrine fleet signatures moving in coordinated patterns. 30 minutes ago, Vacrine forces across 3 sectors abruptly changed course. They're all converging on this position. Hammond swore quietly. They're coming for her. 47 warships at last count, including the War Prince's personal flagship. Cross zoomed the display. The Crimson Sovereign. Kelvar Zontar is burning every resource he has to get Lyria back. How long until they arrive? Marcus asked. 18 hours, maybe 20. We can jump to hyperspace and run, but they'll track us. Vacrine sensor technology is superior to ours. Cross turned to Lyria. Which brings me to you. Is the intel you carry worth starting a shooting war with 47 enemy warships? Lyria met the Admiral's gaze without flinching despite her weakened state. The genetic compatibility data I possess proves humanity is valuable to the Vacrine beyond strategic conquest. With it, you can negotiate from strength. Without it, the war continues until extinction, yours or theirs. Where is this data? Lyria tapped her temple. Encoded in my neural pathways, quantum encrypted memory storage. It cannot be extracted without my cooperation, and it will self-destruct if my life signs cease. The intelligence officer, whose name tag read Colonel Nathan Pierce, stepped forward. Convenient. Very convenient that we need you alive and conscious. It is not convenience, Colonel. It is insurance, Lyria said coldly. The Vacrine would have captured me, extracted the data through torture, then discarded me. This way, I ensure my survival has value. Cross nodded slowly. Smart. Which makes me trust you slightly more. She turned to Pierce. Colonel, you have 12 hours to debrief her thoroughly. I want every detail of Vacrine fleet disposition, high command structure, and genetic research programs.
It's meaning that it's fascinating because it's not working day late, and...
After that, we jump to rendezvous with the rest of Fifth Fleet. 12 hours isn't enough for proper interrogation protocols, Pierce protested. Then work faster. Dr. Foster, how soon can she talk? She can talk now. Just keep it under 6 hours or you'll undo my work. Cross fixed Marcus with a penetrating stare. Sergeant, your squad is reassigned to Defector Protection Detail. She doesn't leave your sight. If the Vacrine have sleeper agents aboard this ship, Lyria is their target. Marcus straightened. Understood, ma'am. One more thing. Cross's voice dropped. The moment I determine she's lying, playing us, or withholding critical information, I end this. She goes in a stasis pod and we use her as a bargaining chip. I will not risk my ship and crew on blind faith. Clear? Crystal, ma'am. Cross left without another word, Pierce following with obvious frustration. Foster exhaled heavily. Well, that went better than expected. Nobody got shot. The night is young, Hammond muttered. Lyria's patterns flickered weakly. Your admiral is wise to be cautious. I would be in her position. Marcus pulled up a chair beside the medical table. You've got 12 hours to convince Pierce and Cross you're legitimate. What do you need from us? Time, Lyria said. And perhaps tell me about your sister, the one who died on Proxima 7. Marcus went very still. How do you know about her? I was part of the research team analyzing human settlements for genetic viability. I read the casualty reports from Proxima 7. Lyria's eyes held genuine sorrow. I read about Warren Kane, age 24, agronomist, killed in the initial bombardment. I read about all 60,000 deaths. That was when I began to question what we were doing. The medical bay fell silent except for the hum of equipment. Marcus's throat felt tight. She was trying to develop crops that could grow in low-light conditions. Wanted to help terraform worlds so humans wouldn't have to rely on Earth imports. She believed in building, not fighting. Then I will honor her memory by helping end this war, Lyria said quietly, so others like her can build without fear. Cole checked his rifle's charge pack. Hate to interrupt the moment, but if 47 Vakreen warships are coming for us, maybe we should prepare for the worst. Already on it, Hammond said, working his datapad. I'm pulling ship schematics, identifying choke points and defensive positions. If they board us, we make them bleed for every meter. Marcus stood, his expression hardening back into the tactical mind that had kept him alive through 5 years of brutal warfare. Hammond's right, we've got 18 hours until the Vakreen arrive. Pierce gets his 12-hour debrief, then we fortress this medical bay? I want overlapping fields of fire, proximity sensors, and enough ammunition to hold off an army. Foster raised an eyebrow. You really think they'll board a human dreadnought? Marcus looked at Lyria, remembering the desperation in Crowbar's eyes, the fury in his roar. For her? Marcus said. They'll walk through hell itself. Colonel Pierce's interrogation ran for 11 hours straight. Marcus watched through reinforced glass as Lyria provided tactical assessments, genetic research protocols, and strategic intelligence that made Pierce's recording team work frantically to keep up. She held nothing back. Vakreen fleet weaknesses, command structure vulnerabilities, even the location of hidden research facilities studying human DNA samples collected from battlefields. Every answer was precise, detailed, and verifiable against existing intelligence databases. She's either the most valuable defector in military history or the most sophisticated plant ever created, Hammond observed, standing watch beside Marcus. Pierce will figure it out, Marcus said, though his hand never left his sidearm. When the session finally ended, Lyria looked exhausted but stable. Dr. Foster immediately ran fresh scans, nodded with satisfaction, and ordered her patient to rest. 6 hours until the Vakreen arrive, Pierce said, joining Marcus outside the medical bay. His expression was unreadable. I've verified 70% of her claims against our intel. The other 30% is new information we can't confirm without field testing. Your assessment? Marcus asked. Either she's legitimate, or the Vakreen spent years building the perfect deception, including letting us verify enough truth to make the lies credible. Pierce rubbed his eyes. My gut says she's real. My training says never trust your gut. What did Cross decide? The Admiral is assembling Fifth Fleet into defensive formation. We're not running, Pierce's jaw tightened. We're making a stand. If Lyria's intel is accurate, we can use it to force negotiations. If she's a plant, we'll know the moment Vakreen forces arrive. Alarms shriek through the corridor. Contact! Someone shouted over the ship-wide comm. Multiple hyperspace signatures, closer than projected. Vakreen fleet dropping in at 300,000 kilometers. Pierce swore and sprinted toward the command deck. Marcus slammed his fist against the medical bay door controls. Lock it down! Nobody gets in without my authorization. The ship shuddered as it maneuvered into battle formation. Through the viewport, Marcus saw the familiar flash of Vakreen warships materializing from hyperspace. Not 47 vessels, 73. They brought reinforcements, Cole breathed. We're outnumbered, 3-1. Hammond checked his rifle. Then we make every shot count. Admiral Cross's voice cut through the chaos. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. Vakrine forces are demanding we surrender the defector Lyria Telver. We have declined. Prepare for engagement. The first Vakrine salvo lit up space like a miniature sun. Human shields flared, absorbing impacts that would have vaporized smaller ships. Fifth Fleet returned fire, railgun rounds and plasma torpedoes streaking across the void. Inside the medical bay, Lyria sat up despite Foster's protests. They will not stop until they have me or confirmation of my death. Kelvar does not accept failure. Then he's about to learn a hard lesson, Marcus said grimly. The ship rocked from a near miss. Lights flickered, emergency systems compensating instantly. Medical Bay 3, this is Cross. We're holding formation, but they're concentrating fire on our position. They know exactly where she is. Marcus's blood went cold. How? We've been dark on all transmissions. Lyria's patterns flashed urgent violet. My neural encryption has a passive beacon. I did not know it was active. The Vakrine can track me anywhere within sensor range. Can you shut it down? Foster demanded. Not without specialized equipment. It was designed to prevent defection. Lyria's expression turned desperate. I have endangered you all. If you transfer me to an escape pod and jettison it, they will cease attacking your fleet. Not happening, Marcus said flatly. Another impact, closer this time. The medical bay's lights went red as the ship took damage. Hammond grabbed Marcus's arm. Kane, if she's broadcasting our position, we need to move her. Make them guess where she is. Spread their fire. Marcus nodded. Foster, can she travel? For short distances, yes, but sustained movement will stress her systems. Then we move fast. Marcus turned to his squad. Cole, Adrian, take point. Hammond, rear guard. We are relocating to auxiliary medical on deck 9. It's deeper in the ship, better protected. They moved Lyria into the corridor just as another explosion rocked the vessel. The deck tilted 15 degrees before gravity compensators caught up. Emergency crews rushed past, shouting damage reports. Hull breach on deck 4, sealing sections 12 through 18. Fire in the starboard engine room, damage control responding. Marcus's squad pushed through the chaos, protecting Lyria as they descended through access shafts toward deck 9. Behind them, the sounds of battle intensified. Human ships were giving everything they had, but Vakrine firepower was relentless. They reached auxiliary medical to find it already crowded with wounded from the first exchanges. A young nurse, maybe 20 years old, looked up with wide eyes as they entered with a Vakrine. Clear a space, Marcus ordered. Priority patient. Admiral's authority. The medical staff hesitated only a moment before complying. They got Lyria onto a bed just as the ship's artificial gravity failed for 3 seconds. Everyone floated, then crashed down when it restored. Direct hit to primary generators, a voice shouted over comms. Switching to backups. Through the bulkhead, Marcus felt, rather than heard, the deep vibration of the ship's main batteries, firing continuously. They were in a slugging match, trading blow for blow with an enemy that had superior numbers. Lyria gripped Marcus's hand, her strength surprising. This is wrong. Your people are dying because of me, because I was selfish enough to choose freedom over duty. You chose what was right, Marcus said. There's nothing selfish about that. Kelvar will not stop. He will destroy your entire fleet to reclaim me. Her patterns pulsed with anguish. I am one life. Thousands of yours hang in the balance. Those thousands signed up to fight for something bigger than themselves, Marcus told her. Today, that's fighting for your right to choose your own path. That's worth bleeding for. The ship lurched violently. Somewhere above them, metal screamed and atmosphere vented into space. Then Pierce's voice came through Marcus's comm, tight with urgency. Sergeant Kane, we have a situation. Vakrine boarding pods just breached decks 6 and 8. They're cutting through our Marines and heading straight for your position. Marcus felt ice flood his veins. How many? 30 confirmed hostiles, heavy assault configuration. Sergeant, they're not trying to capture the ship? They're coming specifically for Lyria. Hammond checked his ammunition. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they reach this deck. Cole looked at Marcus. Orders, Sergeant? Marcus surveyed the medical bay. Wounded personnel, frightened medical staff, 1 exhausted Vacrine defector, and 6 soldiers with whatever ammunition they carried. Against 30 Vacrine shock troops who'd already proven they could shred through trained Marines, the odds were impossible. The position was indefensible. Retreat would expose them in corridors where Vacrine speed and strength were even more advantageous. Every tactical assessment said they were dead. Marcus smiled without humor. We hold, right here. They want her, they go through us first. He turned to Lyria, meeting those violet eyes that had started this entire impossible situation. You chose humanity, he said. Now let me show you why that choice matters. Outside, heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors. Getting closer. The Vacrine were coming. Marcus positioned his squad with brutal efficiency. Hammond and Cole took the primary entrance, using medical equipment as improvised cover. Specialists Rivera and Chen covered the secondary access shaft. Corporal Jake Sullivan rigged proximity mines in the ventilation ducts. They'll come fast and coordinated, Marcus said, checking his magazine. Vacrine shock troops don't do slow. First wave tests our defenses. Second wave exploits weaknesses. Third wave finishes us. So we don't let them get to wave 3, Hammond said. The medical staff huddled in the back corner with the wounded. Dr. Foster refused to leave, staying near Lyria with a scalpel in her hand like it might actually help. Sergeant, Lyria called weakly, there is another option. If you give me a weapon, I can end my own life. The beacon dies with me. Kelvar will have no reason to continue the assault. Marcus didn't even look back. Not an option. Never was. I am trying to save your lives. And we're trying to save yours. Welcome to humanity. We're stubborn that way. The deck vibrated with rhythmic impacts. Something massive was approaching through the ship's infrastructure, moving with terrible purpose. Sullivan's proximity sensor screamed a warning. Contact! Ventilation shaft! 20 meters in closing! The mine detonated with a muffled crump. Metal shrieked. A Vacrine warrior crashed through the vent opening, armor blackened but still functional. It landed in a crouch, weapon already tracking. Marcus put 3 rounds through its neck joint before it could fire. The warrior went down, bioluminescent blood pooling beneath it. That's one, Cole muttered. The primary door exploded, inward. Not breached, not forced. Exploded. Someone had placed shaped charges with surgical precision, turning the entrance into shrapnel that shredded medical equipment and sent the squad diving for cover. 4 Vacrine warriors stormed through the smoke, moving with inhuman speed. Their armor was midnight black, marked with red glyphs that designated elite hunter-killers. Hammond opened up with sustained fire, rounds sparking off their shields. Chen threw a flashbang that barely slowed them. Rivera caught one with a perfect shot to its power supply, and the warrior's shield collapsed, but the other 3 kept coming. One reached Cole's position. The Vacrine swept his rifle aside with contemptuous strength and raised a blade for the killing stroke. Lyria screamed something in her native language. The warrior froze mid-strike, head snapping toward her. Whatever she'd said, it cut through combat programming and triggered something deeper. Cole used the hesitation to roll clear and empty his sidearm into the warrior's exposed armpit joint. It collapsed, armor sparking. "What did you say?" Marcus shouted, firing at the remaining 2. "I invoked the old code," Lyria gasped. "Ancient law that predates the High Command. They must acknowledge it, even if they choose to violate it afterward." The 2 remaining warriors stopped their assault. One spoke in clicking Vacrine, his tone almost questioning. Lyria responded, her voice gaining strength. The exchange lasted maybe 10 seconds before the warrior shook his head and raised his weapon again. Sullivan's second mine detonated in the secondary shaft. 2 more warriors dropped through, their shields already absorbing the blast. "They're probing from multiple angles," Hammond said, reloading. "Classic Vacrine tactics. Next wave will be the real push." Marcus's calm crackled. "Medical Bay, this is Cross. We pushed back their fleet. but those boarding parties are still active. Can you hold? For now, Admiral. But we need reinforcements. Negative. Every Marine we have is fighting breaches on 4 different decks. You're on your own for another 10 minutes, maybe 15. The secondary shaft warriors opened fire. Energy bolts punched through medical equipment and walls. Rivera took a glancing hit that sheared armor off her shoulder. She kept firing despite the burn. Then the lights died. Emergency power kicked in after 3 seconds of total darkness, bathing everything in red. They cut the power grid, Chen said. They're isolating us. In the crimson glow, Marcus saw movement in the corridor beyond the destroyed entrance. Not 4 warriors this time. Not even 10. 20 Vacrine shock troops advanced in perfect formation, shields overlapping, weapons synchronized. Behind them, a figure in ornate crimson armor stepped into view. Even without seeing his face, Marcus knew who it was. "Quem va zontar?" Lyria whispered, her patterns going pale with fear. The War Prince himself. Kelvar was massive, 8.5 feet of engineered warrior perfection. His armor bore the scars of 100 battles, each one a mark of honor in Vacrine culture. He carried no weapon. His hands were weapon enough. He spoke, and despite never hearing the language before, Marcus understood the tone. Absolute authority. Unwavering conviction. A predator that had never known defeat, Lyria translated, her voice shaking. He says I have one chance to surrender peacefully. Return with him, accept my place as his bonded, and these humans die quickly. Refuse, and he makes my death last days while I watch your species burn. Tell him to go to hell, Marcus said calmly. Lyria's eyes widened. He will kill all of you, probably, but he'll earn every corpse. Marcus raised his voice, speaking directly to Kelvar, though he knew the prince likely didn't speak English. You want her? Come through us. See how expensive she really is. Kelvar's head tilted slightly, and Marcus could swear he saw respect flicker in those alien eyes. Then the War Prince raised his hand and gestured forward. The 20 warriors charged. Marcus's squad opened up with everything they had. Concentrated fire stripped shields, found armor gaps, exploited every weakness human soldiers had learned through 5 years of desperate combat. 3 warriors fell, then 5, but it wasn't enough. There were too many, too close, too fast. A warrior reached Hammond, swatted his rifle away, and lifted him off his feet. Hammond pulled a combat knife and buried it in the warrior's eye. They both went down in a tangle of blood and screaming. Cole was fighting hand-to-hand with 2 warriors simultaneously, his enhanced combat reflexes barely keeping him alive. Sullivan detonated his last mine, taking himself and 4 warriors out in a blast that cratered the deck. Rivera and Chen formed a desperate last mine between the Vacrine and the medical staff. Marcus fought beside them, knowing it was futile, knowing they were seconds from being overwhelmed. Then Kelvar himself stepped forward, and the remaining warriors parted for him. He walked straight toward Lyria, ignoring the humans entirely as beneath his notice. Marcus put 5 rounds into his chest plate. They might as well have been thrown pebbles. Kelvar reached the medical bed where Lyria lay, his hand extended toward her, almost gentle despite its size, and Lyria looked past him directly at Marcus. I am sorry, she said. I am sorry I brought this upon you, but I do not regret choosing humanity. I do not regret choosing you. Her hand moved to something beneath her medical gown, a small device Foster must have missed during treatment. A Vacrine fusion destabilizer, set to a 5-second countdown. Kelvar saw it and roared, grabbing for her wrist. Marcus understood in that frozen instant. Lyria was going to vaporize herself, Kelvar, and half the deck to save what remained of his squad. She was choosing the same death she'd nearly chosen on the planet's surface. But this time Marcus wasn't close enough to stop her. The device began its final sequence, energy building toward critical mass. Then Admiral Cross's voice cut through every comm channel simultaneously. All Vacrine forces cease fire immediately. We have deployed quantum-encrypted transmissions to every human colony and military installation containing complete copies of Lyria Telvar's genetic research data.
If she dies, if this fleet is destroyed, that information becomes public domain across human space.
Your extinction crisis becomes common knowledge, and your strategic advantage evaporates.
Kelvar froze, his hand centimeters from Lyria's wrist.
You have 30 seconds to withdraw all boarding parties, Cross continued, her voice ice and steel. Or I release the data anyway and let humanity decide what to do with a dying species that tried to genocide us for genetic material. In the red-lit medical bay, with bodies cooling on the deck and the stench of blood thick in the air, Marcus watched the war prints of the Vakreen make a calculation. Kelvar's hand slowly withdrew. The Vakreen withdrawal took 6 hours. 6 tense, silent hours where both fleets held position, weapons hot, waiting for someone to break the fragile ceasefire. Marcus stayed with Lyria the entire time, refusing medical attention for his own injuries until Dr. Foster physically forced him into a chair and sealed the plasma burn across his ribs. Hammond had 3 broken ribs and a concussion. Cole's left arm was shattered. Sullivan was dead, along with 23 other crew members from the boarding actions. The butcher's bill could have been worse, but it still felt heavy. When the last Vakreen boarding pod finally detached and retreated to their fleet, the collective exhale across Fifth Fleet was almost audible. Admiral Cross summoned Marcus to the command deck 2 hours after the Vakreen jumped to hyperspace. He found her staring at tactical displays, exhaustion evident in the lines around her eyes. "Sergeant Kane," she said without preamble, "your defector just changed the entire strategic landscape of this war. The data she provided checks out. Every detail, every projection, every tactical assessment. It's all legitimate. So what happens now, ma'am?" "Now?" Cross smiled without humor. "Now we negotiate. The Vakreen know we have their deepest secret. They know humanity understands their extinction timeline. That changes everything. Will they accept peace? They'll accept survival. Whether that looks like peace or something else remains to be seen." Cross turned to face him directly. "Lyria Telvar has requested political asylum. Normally, I'd send that request up the chain and let the politicians decide. But given what she sacrificed, what she's given us, I'm inclined to approve it myself." "She deserves it," Marcus said quietly. "She does, but there's a complication." Cross pulled up a message on her display. "The Vakreen have made a counteroffer. They'll agree to preliminary peace negotiations on one condition. Lyria returns voluntarily to testify before their high command about human genetic compatibility. They claim it's necessary for their leadership to accept the reality of their situation." Marcus felt cold spread through his chest. That's a death sentence. The moment she sets foot on a Vakreen world, Kelvar will have her executed for treason. Probably, which is why I've already declined on her behalf. Cross's expression hardened. "But it's her choice to make, not mine, not yours. She gets to decide her own fate. That's what freedom means." They found Lyria in a private medical room, finally recovered enough to walk unassisted. Her bioluminescent patterns were steady now, pulsing gentle blue. When Marcus entered, she turned with something that might have been relief. "Sergeant Kane. I heard about the Admiral's decision regarding asylum. I am grateful beyond words." "There's more," Marcus said, "then explain the Vakreen offer." Lyria listened in silence, her patterns shifting through colors Marcus was beginning to recognize. Purple for concern, red for anger, finally settling on pale violet. "If I return, the peace process has a foundation," she said slowly. "My testimony could convince the High Command that cooperation with humanity is their only survival path. But if I stay, you live," Marcus finished. "You get the freedom you risked everything for. While my people potentially face extinction without understanding they have another option." Lyria moved to the viewport, staring out at the stars. "I chose humanity because I believed in the value of individual choice, of refusing orders that conflicted with my conscience. But now the choice affects billions of lives." "You don't owe them anything," Marcus said. "They tried to kill you. Kelvar will execute you the moment you're vulnerable. Perhaps, or perhaps seeing me alive, seeing that I chose this path willingly, will make some of them question their own assumptions about your species." She turned back to him. "You told me once that your sister believed in building rather than fighting. What would she counsel in this situation? Marcus thought of Lauren, of her determination to make barren worlds bloom, of her belief that every problem had a solution if you were willing to work for it. She'd say, "Do what lets you sleep at night," he said finally. She'd say the right choice is usually the hardest one. Lyria nodded slowly. "Then I will return, but on my terms. I want human observers present during my testimony. I want the sessions broadcast to both Vakreen and human populations, and I want to guarantee that if the High Command attempts to execute me, humanity considers it an act of war." "That's a hell of a demand," Marcus said. "I learned from the best." She met his eyes. "You stood between me and certain death with nothing but faith that it mattered. Now I do the same." Admiral Cross, listening via comm, spoke up. "I'll take your terms to diplomatic channels." "But Lyria, you understand this is incredibly dangerous?" "I do. But Sergeant Kane taught me something on that planet when he refused to let me activate my destabilizer. Sometimes the most important battles aren't won with weapons. They're won by refusing to accept that death is the only option." 3 weeks later, Marcus stood in full-dress uniform aboard a neutral station in unclaimed space. Diplomats from 17 human colonies filled one side of the vast chamber. Vakreen High Command members, their armor ceremonial rather than combat-ready, filled the other. And in the center, Lyria Telvar stood before a holographic relay that broadcast her words to both species simultaneously. She spoke for 6 hours, about the genetic research, about the extinction timeline, about the fear that drove Vakreen aggression and the desperation that made them see other species as resources rather than people. But mostly, she spoke about choice, about the human sergeant who'd risked his life for an enemy, about the squad that stood against impossible odds defending someone they barely knew, about a species that valued individual freedom enough to fight for it, even when logic said to surrender. Kelvar Zontar sat among the Vakreen delegation, his expression unreadable behind his ceremonial mask. When Lyria finished, he stood. The chamber went silent. "You have dishonored our people," Kelvar said, his voice echoing through translation systems. "You chose primitives over your own kind. You betrayed secrets that should have died with you." Marcus's hand moved toward his sidearm, though weapons were forbidden in the chamber. "But," Kelvar continued, "you have also shown courage that demands acknowledgement. You faced death rather than accept a fate you did not choose. That is the oldest virtue of our people, one we have forgotten in our desperation." He removed his mask, revealing a face scarred from 100 battles. "The High Command will consider cooperation with humanity, not because you have forced us, but because you have demonstrated that survival without honor is not survival at all." He looked directly at Marcus. "Your species fights with a ferocity that suggests you understand this truth as well." The Vakreen delegation rose as one and departed. No agreement signed, no treaty formalized. But a beginning, a crack in the wall that had separated two species locked in mutual extinction. Admiral Cross approached Marcus afterward. "Preliminary reports suggest the Vakreen are genuinely considering cooperative genetic research rather than forced extraction. If that holds, we just ended a war that's killed millions. Because one alien decided she'd rather die free than live in a cage," Marcus said. "Because one soldier decided her choice mattered more than following orders," Cross corrected. She handed him a data chip. "Your commendation. Silver Star for valor, along with the rest of your squad. Sullivan gets his posthumously." Marcus took the chip but didn't look at it. His eyes found Lyria across the chamber, surrounded by diplomats asking questions. Her patterns cycling through colors he'd learned meant patience wearing thin. She caught his gaze and smiled, a very human expression on a very alien face. Later, after the diplomats finally released her, they stood together at the station's observation deck. Vakreen ships and human vessels hung in space nearby, still armed, still wary, but no longer firing. "What will you do now?" Marcus asked. "I have been granted asylum on the colony world New Terra. Apparently, they need xenobiology consultants to help with the integration programs being developed." Lyria's patterns shifted to warm gold. "And you?" "Back to 3rd Recon. War might be ending, but there's still cleanup. Pirates, raiders, the usual mess. Would you visit New Terra? The colony is only 3 jumps from your forward base. Marcus thought about it. Thought about a Bakreen who'd chosen humanity over her own people. Thought about his sister who'd believed in building bridges instead of walls. Thought about what came next in a universe where enemies could become allies. Yeah, he said, I'll visit. Someone's got to make sure you're settling in properly. Lyria's patterns flared brilliant violet, and Marcus realized he was learning to read her emotions as easily as any human. Then I look forward to it, Sergeant Kane. Marcus, he corrected. Just Marcus. Marcus, she repeated, testing the name. The human who taught me that choosing your own path is worth any price. Outside the viewport, the stars burned eternal, indifferent to the species that fought beneath them. But maybe, just maybe, 2 civilizations had learned that survival didn't require becoming monsters. Sometimes it just required one person willing to make an impossible choice, and another willing to fight for it.